Well, it doesn't seem to matter if I text my co-host and say you read, but that's right. I'm Dave, and Mickey's muted.
And I'm muted, and I'm Mickey.
There you go. And this is Shiny Side Out. It's probably best that I started reading. Broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on revolution.radio, and that is the home. Fresh ideas and conversations. You'll find those in the chat where I am right now. Hi Fleeced, hi Harmony. Buy some merchandise or donate. It's a way to support the station if you like anything we say, or simply just join us in the chat room while we're on air. And it's the magic of radio. This is show number, Mackie. Can you believe this? 717.
Wow, 710 and 700. How about that?
Yeah, I know, right? It does that. It's linear. Tune in to us online on your smart device directly via an app, or listen at home on a Grace tabletop digital radio. TalkStream Live and Zeno FM are also other options for you. If you missed Solaris' show, she had Miss B on as a co-host, talking about some great things. Now, I did actually miss the show. I was doing some father Ubering, and I had a little snooze, because, can. I missed it, but that's not going to be a problem, Mackie, because I can just jump straight into the archives, which is free, and I can download Solaris' show, which I'm going to, and listen to that offline as an MP3. Goodness me, the things you could do these days. So, Mackie, I'm broadcasting out of Darkinjung country. Whereabouts are you?
I'm, of course, in Direct Country.
And Mackie and I continue to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land from whence we broadcast. Mackie, I wanted to open the show, not do a cold open on it, but I wanted to open a show and talk about the fires that aren't very far, or weren't very far from me, if you don't mind. So, I've got a middle screen shot here. So, at 1 p.m. yesterday, there was, got to go around the side of the camera here. Now, you can't, I'm turning the volume off it, but you can see there's a fire on the other side of the hill. And actually, from my perspective, of course, it was getting pretty significant. It's about 1:30 yesterday afternoon. I think one o'clock. They all said it started at 1. No, it didn't kind of start at 1. It was just a slight bit earlier. Some other footage from the scene. You can see the rail. That's the train. Well, the train line that I catch to go to work. It's right beside it. In fact, it hopped on either side. Beautiful houses dot that side. And just going to go through some of those. They had some aircraft assets, helicopters, and 2 planes. One's an observer plane. And they also use satellite technology to see where the hotspots are. And they can isolate those because, Australia's got pretty dense forest. And you can't really see much. In this shot, you can't really see much past about 20 feet into the bush. So I live in a very similar location, but there's one shot here. That's not the one. There's one shot that actually shows the same hill. There it is. So the same hill that I'm filming from the other side from, and I'll remind you again. I've got to go back a little. There's the same hill. So one hill there. Same hill in the background, that's why I could see it in the direction from which I broadcast Mackie over here in Darkinjung country. The shame about this was I think 10 houses were lost or something, 16. The numbers aren't quite clear yet. They haven't made all their official announcements. No lives lost, thankfully. But it's so close to a waterway that the helicopters could just jump over there and go back again. They had fire retardant planes coming from about an hour's drive away, but it's only about 10 minutes flight time, so that's from Newcastle. Very interesting. It started from one house. It wasn't the bush, it was from one house. They haven't mentioned yet officially what the cause was. We know that I'm not saying this is speculation, I'm not saying what it is, but there has been a lot of e-bike or e-scooter charging fires. So someone has charged their e-bike or e-scooter in a garage, joining a house, and it's got thermal runaway and burnt the house down. I don't know what the case is here. It just started a house. They've kind of not wanted to talk about it. So it could be that, or they've just not released the information yet to the public. During this fire, it jumped by ember storm. That's floating embers in the air, in the hot stream of air coming down into another location. At Woy Woy Bay, they actually found a deceased person that had been in the water for some time, trapped underneath the private weirs or private, what do you call it, jetties. Yeah, so extraordinary day. It was 40 degrees Celsius. Luckily, where I was, Mackie, I'll ask you a question in a minute. And it's no doubt. You can, if in this shot, you can see everything is forested. It's just the way we live. And I think this only being 6 days into December, officially 6 days into summer, this is not the end. I think it's only the beginning. And while we have 20 degrees cooler temperatures today than yesterday, 27 degrees, it's a sign of things to come for this summer. Everything's completely tinder dry. We haven't had much rain, and I don't see this getting any better, Mackie.
It's a theme. So Australia at the moment is not in the grip of devastating fires. I mean, they're bad, but they're not things that we haven't seen before. But it's a theme across the world of a changing climate, where fires are becoming more frequent, and fires are becoming larger as well, burning more. It's a really simple equation, right? If you've got a lot of rain coming through, a lot of growth, even over a number of years, and then you've got a couple of dry seasons, and you don't clear out all the underbrush, let's say, you've got a lot of tinder. And of course, forest management is something that is done poorly almost everywhere in the world. In Australia, we're now adopting, or have been adopting for a little while, the indigenous forest management solutions. So that's a tick in the box for us. Still, we can't obviously, sit on our hands and then, congratulate ourselves on solving the issue. But this is just one of the topics. So the next one, of course, is, so you got fires, okay? But there's, various reasons for that as well. You also got thunderstorms, which no longer have any water, but produce, electric discharges, which cause,
They call it dry lightning, Mackie. And correct. I took some footage yesterday from my balcony of the exact position where the fires were at, and the lightning hit the same place.
Yeah, and I was going to say, because yesterday we had like 40 degrees, as Dave said, which is hot. It's 104, 105, I think, Fahrenheit. Super hot. And lots of, where I live, and it's not too far from Dave, but there were storm clouds. There were what would normally be a thunderstorm cloud, but there was no thunderstorm, there was no rain, but there was lightning. And that's what Dave just, said, dry lightning. That's exactly right, which is, of course...
I have a shot of it. So yeah, it has no audio, so don't worry.
No, that's good. But of course, this is horrendously dangerous. You still have the electrical discharge, which can cause fires quite easily. But there's more. In Southeast Asia, recently we had a whole raft of typhoons and storms coming through the area, right? My mistake. Indonesia had 100,000 homes destroyed. 100,000 homes were destroyed in Indonesia by these powerful rains and storms, and the death toll has now passed 900. Now, we're not a ghoulish show which likes to parade death numbers, but you gotta put this into context here. These things are happening all over the world at the same time, right? This is not, this happens here once in a while, this happens here, another year, a few years later. This is all happening at the same time, and it's really quite terrifying when you watch either hemisphere on fire, depending on where it's summer, or mudslides and flooding, flash flooding, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And freak storms and more storms. I mean, recently, as you recall, the Caribbean was hit closer to America, of course. It was hit by a very significant hurricane.
And the most rapidly created Cat 5. It was overnight from zero.
And that's due to it is due to rising temperatures in the air and the water. It's the warmer these elements are, the quicker these storm systems form, and the more powerful they become. And I mean, we've already had to invent new terms for these powerful storms. We already had to do that, right? I will say here that we will have to invent more terms for more powerful systems. I fear, and I think Dave and I, we've discussed this, I fear that we may be coming into an era where we create, we don't create it, I guess, but where a powerful permanent storm system exists, similar to got the right conditions. It's easy enough for it to happen, and we are moving rapidly into that direction. And that's just the weather. Now, there's some funny things, or funny, not funny, but some hilariously funny, in my opinion. Donald Trump is styling himself as the Prince of Peace, right? Now, something really funny happened, Dave.
You don't get an award, Mickey, unless you are.
So two things. So FIFA invented
soccer agency, Mickey.
Invented a peace prize for Donald Trump.
Sure.
Donald Trump got the newly invented FIFA Peace Prize. But I watched the footage, Dave, and this is the funny bit. So he walks onto the stage, he grabs the medal from the poor official, puts it on himself, couldn't wait to put it on, and so I guess the president of FIFA was meant to do it and give it to him. Is taking him back a bit, and Donald Trump, he couldn't be more pleased with himself. It's incredible. He's like a little kid in a candy store. Nothing more than he was just so pleased to have this medal. But at the same time, this is funny. Rwanda and the Congo, the Republic, also DRC, Democratic Republic of the Congo, were fighting, right? And Donald Trump rides in on his white horse and declares, "Oh, we've created a peace here." Yeah. Now, the funny thing, this is straight from Reuters. Fighting raged in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo on Friday, a day after U.S. President Donald Trump hosted Congolese and Rwandan leaders in Washington to sign new deals aimed at ending years of conflict in a region rich in minerals. So,
they aimed at doing it. That's fantastic.
So that didn't work at all.
I've aimed a water hose at something and still missed.
Yeah. Now, there's actually more to this if you think about it for a second. So all right. So we've got something called the international community. It's all the nations, how they interact together, and they're meant to do this more successfully within the UN. The idea was for the UN to be the place where people come to get together and talk. Fair enough, right?
That's where you air your dirty laundry. Yep.
But of course, the UN doesn't really have any power of its own, meaning it doesn't have any enforcement agencies, so you can pass whatever you like in the UN. It doesn't do anything. But nonetheless, there is this international body of diplomacy that exists. And we have professionals. Every country has these. Professional diplomats, professional negotiators, professional mediators, professional negotiators that deal with these kinds of things all the time. They have the right connections, they went to the right schools, they have the right friends, they speak the right languages, and they are probably of the right mindset, if you will. They have the right frame of mind. Donald Trump is using none of those to broker any of his peace deals, or he sends in his friend Witkoff, who's a real estate mogul from New York, so he knows how to make deals in real estate. Creating political agreements with people that have been at war with each other for decades, not quite the same thing. So I'm going to say here quite boldly that all of the things that Donald Trump and his administration are negotiating or claiming to have negotiated are all going to go the way of the dodo. They're going to last exactly no time at all. Of course, most importantly, the two most important ones, right, is of course what's happening in Gaza, Israel, and the Palestinians, right? Number one. Number two, Ukraine and Russia. So Israel and Gaza. The Gazans are still dying. The Palestinians are dying. There are constant incursions into Gaza because Israel says, "Oh, we were fired upon. Someone shot at us, and we're shooting back." And more civilians are being killed. Palestinians, of course. No one else. At the same time, you have an investigation into mass graves of people that were looking for aid, and it now turns out it seems that people that were killed while waiting for aid by the IDF had been bulldozed into the ground. That's not awesome. That's quite disturbing, but that's actually something that is happening or has happened, and they're now investigating that to see, what's the what here. It's really quite disturbing. Netanyahu also doesn't want to be, he doesn't want to deal with his corruption trial anymore. That's happening as well, because that's an ongoing thing. Okay, and the far right coalition in the Knesset, which is the Israeli parliament, is now boycotting the vote backing or the backing of Trump's Gaza plan. Okay, and this is of course aimed to embarrass Netanyahu. So it's his people that are trying to stop to go this through. So that's going to be a little problematic in my opinion. Okay, it's very interesting, the things that are going on in Israel. They have, of course, passed a law, as I said before, that they're going to annex the West Bank. They're going to annex Gaza. I mean, no one can live in Gaza at the moment. And funnily enough, Dave, the Israelis have opened the southern crossing into Egypt, between Gaza and in Egypt. However, it's a one-way ticket. You can leave Gaza, but you cannot come back. So if you're Palestinian in Gaza, the crossing is open. In you go into Egypt or wherever, but you cannot come back. Russia.
Like security turnstiles, Mackie. That's what it is.
That's pretty much it. It's like, hang on, I forgot my pass. No, you didn't.
Too late.
Bye-bye.
Too late.
Now, which brings us to a present point.
Mackie, to be honest, that crossing, up until very recently, wasn't allowing anyone across.
Correct.
So Egypt had said no. So there is one kind of weird step forward there, but then not being allowed back. That's going to forever change the balance of what's occurring in Gaza, because there's less and less people to complain, I suppose.
But let's understand what's happening here. So Egypt is not stupid, right? There are about 2 million Palestinians left in various parts of Gaza. 2 million, thereabout. Now, Egypt knows what Israel wants. The reason Egypt said no is because they know once the Palestinians are there, they're there for good. Back in the day, we're talking like, when the establishment, the nascent establishment of the Israeli state, a lot of Palestinians fled into Jordan, right? And we're talking hundreds of thousands. In fact, there are more Palestinians in Jordan than Jordanians, which is really funny if you think about it. But of course, they stayed there, and they have been there for the last, 80? Yeah, about 80 years, something like that. Sorry, I just banged on my desk. But it's really quite sensible for Egypt to say, hang on, we can't deal with this influx of refugees, right? I mean, nothing is ready here, right? I mean, okay, Israel opened the border, that's nice, so, Palestinians can go into Egypt, and then what? Right? And then what? That's the question, and then what? It's like when the Syrians were fleeing conflict in Syria and made it all the way to Germany, right? So Germany let 1 million Syrians in. 1 million Syrians! And then the question was, then what? Now, I happen to know people in Germany, obviously, friends, family, blah, blah, blah. They were calling the councils. So local government was calling private homes to see if they could take in refugees to stay in private homes, because 1 million people, Germany has about 80 million people as a population, right? 80 million. And 1 million people, that's actually quite significant as a percentage to come in. That's like 1.4, 1.5% of the total population. It's nothing to sneeze at, right? So,
and how do you do
obviously, how do you do it? Exactly. Now, it was done, and Germans were quite good there, so that's goodness. But Egypt is I don't think is prepared to I guess provide shelter for potentially 1 million or 2 million, however many Palestinians there are, right? So that's a real issue. That's a real problem there. So that's Israel, and I mean, nothing is happening there. This is the frustrating thing. So Trump says, I stopped 8, 9 wars here and there, and these are I wouldn't call them. I mean, there are wars there, yes, but he didn't really stop them. And the others, there were more skirmishes, really, right? India, Pakistan, there's more skirmish than a war. They've been at each other's throat for the last 50 years anyway, right? But it's not easy. My point here is this: it is not easy to negotiate these things. I actually studied this at uni, right? Conflict resolution as part of my political sciences course, and I was lucky enough to have a really great lecturer, Leanne Piggott, Dr. Leanne Piggott, and she had traveled to the Middle East many times. She knew Benjamin Netanyahu personally, so I had some fantastic lecturers. But the point is this: you can't just throw people in there that have no experience in international diplomacy, don't understand maybe even the players, right? And then have them negotiate something. It's a nonsense. It's Dave, it's corporatism all over. The corporate world does exactly that. The corporate world goes in without a thought, throws people in the deep end, and expects them to come up with miracles, ideally at no cost. That's the corporate world. That's what Trump is doing here with all his negotiations. Now, just to be clear, Russia has done nothing to advance the peace. And they will not do anything. They will not sign any treaties. They will not make any concessions unless they get all of Donbass. Now, bear in mind, Donbass, an extremely important region, both for Russia and the Ukraine, has not been conquered yet by Russia. They've been trying, but the Ukrainians are holding their own. So he wants to get it without having to conquer it. That's his,
Well, that's the shape of the current peace plan.
It is. Now, the Ukrainians can't say yes to that. So it's not the Ukrainians that are stopping this, or that are being unreasonable. It's Putin. Putin has no interest in peace. If there were a peace, let's say there were a peace. Let's say for argument's sake, the Ukraine says, you know what? Take the Donbass.
Sure. Yeah.
Here you go.
Sure. Why not? Let's do that.
And Putin goes, all right, fine. So fighting stops. The troops are withdrawn. You lick your wounds, etc. So that's great.
Wait. Dress it up. Start to populate that new thing. Put a new border line there. Right? Open the roads up. Maybe not.
All of it.
And then what's going to happen next?
Well, so then what happens next? You're licking your wounds. You're doing this now in the peace plan. The Ukrainians are meant to be reduced to a fairly small army. So they can only have a small army. There aren't any European troops allowed or any NATO troops allowed in the Ukraine. They're only allowed to have certain weapon types.
But that sounds like a tactical advantage, Mackie, for Russia.
And the thing is this, right? So I will paint that picture a bit more, but you have to go back in time just a little bit for a second. Now, when the Soviet Union collapsed, Ukraine held the second most nuclear and ballistic missiles of the Soviet Empire, second only to Russia. Right? So the arsenal was massive. They could have been a nuclear power all on their own. overnight, Ukraine. Negotiations happened. The Ukrainians quite reasonably said, you know what, we don't really want them. We can't really take care of them. We don't want any accidents to happen, etc., etc. Wonderful, right? You think, awesome. Russia gave all kinds of guarantees, security guarantees. Americans gave guarantees. NATO gave guarantees. Europeans, everybody signs these contracts and treaties and agreements saying that Ukraine is going to be safe. He has to give up the nuclear weapons and no one will attack them, and wonderful, right? Now, that agreement was not worth the paper it was written on, as we all know now, right? 2014 comes along and in we go into the Crimea. And now, you know, this war has been going on for 4 years, I think, is right? Going into 5th year, I think. And so the Ukrainians know that any agreement with Russia and Putin specifically is not worth the ink that, you know, is spent on the paper at all.
That's right.
It's not worth the ink. Forget the paper. And why would they believe anything? Security guarantees how? In the only way you can truly guarantee security if you station 100,000 Marines at the Ukrainian-Russian border, like they do in North Korea and South Korea. There are American troops there, if you don't know it. That's what you do. 100,000 Marines. Okay, then in that case, you know, because once the Russian attack, they'll kill American soldiers. Is that going to happen? Not in your wildest dreams. It's not going to happen. Of course not. Right? So there's nothing compelling the Ukrainians to do this. But let's say they did. Let's say they did, like we said before. Okay, so like Dave said, you know, might open up the border again, you know, populate people again. Now the Donbass is a heavily fortified region. And it's one of the main reasons why the Russian advance is halted, because it's so heavily fortified and defended. Right? So the Ukrainians put a lot of effort and work into creating this kind of defensive perimeter in Donbass. That's now gone. Give the Russians a year or two, maybe 3 years to restock their armies, military supplies, you know, get the oil and gas trade going again without any sanctions, because, you know, part of the agreement would be for all the sanctions to be removed, I'm sure, right? So Russia can now rearm, restock, retrain, you know, troops, etc., etc. And Ukraine, of course, is doing the opposite. According to the agreement, it has to shrink its military capabilities, and it cannot invite foreign troops onto its territory. So what do you think is going to happen in 3 years' time? That's right. Russia is going to come and knock. It's going like, I'm doing this deliberately now. Hello? Anybody home? Right? That knocking was a deliberate knock at the Ukrainian door. And the Ukrainians are going, oh, well, I guess we're screwed, because there's nothing we can do. You've literally turned us into a nation that cannot defend itself. So if that were to happen, the Ukraine is gone, done, and the Russians would have learned as well from this campaign. So they wouldn't hopefully make the same mistakes again. But who knows, right?
Well, I would say that Russia would go all the way up to the Poland border.
Oh, 100%. In fact, Ukraine is bordering all of Ukraine. All of Ukraine is now Russian. That's it. Done. Finished. So you now have Russia right at the doorstep of Poland. And Poland, of course, not too thrilled about that. The Baltic states, not too thrilled. Scandinavian states, not too thrilled. Germans, not really holding their breath, hoping for something good. And there's really nothing.
Also was the dismantling of NATO in the agreement.
To some extent, that won't be happening. That can't happen.
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So
now,
to have no conflict, to have no opposition in this, and then you could sweep across the whole thing all the way up to the I don't know, to France rifle chuckers, right? Did I say that out loud? Yeah.
In the meantime, Poland, the Scandinavian nations, the Baltic nations, and France to some extent, Great Britain to some extent, but there's an article here. German lawmakers approve plan to attract more military recruits as Europe seeks to counter Russia. That's today. That's today's article. The Germany's Bundestag, which is like the Congress, let's call it, right? Because there's the Bundesrat, which is like the Senate, but the Bundestag is more like the Congress. Anyway, they voted for a bill on Friday that allows the country to move towards conscription, as tension with Russia spur calls for Europe to gain more independence from the US security umbrella. And this is interesting. The controversial bill passed with a relatively solid majority in the end, with 303 lawmakers voting yes and 272 voting no, and 1 abstaining. That's significant. This is significant. Conscription was I was born under at the age when conscription was a real thing. So you had to join the army or do something else, right? So you had to. But then Russia fell, and they got rid of conscription, and right now the German army consists of about 260,000 soldiers. Okay, sorry, 180,000. My mistake. Right now there's 180,000. Okay. Now what they want to do is they want to build it up to 260,000 soldiers plus another 200 reservists by 2035, which brings the fighting force to just shy of 500,000.
And
right? Nowhere near World War II levels, but still, it's a lot, and it'll cost a lot. But I find it astounding that the Germans did vote for it. So this is serious stuff. This is really serious stuff. Okay, Denmark expanded its military service to include women in July. Latvia reintroduced compulsory military service for men in January of 2024. And France announced the creation of a new voluntary youth military service last month. This is all in response to what Russia is doing. Now, Germany has had we haven't had a mandatory or conscription military service since 2011. Okay, so it was all voluntary. Okay, and right now the armed forces represent 2% of the German GDP. Okay, and if you think about Germany rearming, it sort of brings back a little bitter taste of the Nazi era. I mean, you can't help yourself. It's you do. It's oh, that's not so good. But that's where we are right now. Europe is rearming. Turkey is also rearming, and Turkey holds a very powerful position within NATO. It controls the Black Sea, and it controls access to Mediterranean for Russia, right? Because you have to go through the Bosporus, which is controlled by Turkey, in order to make it to the Mediterranean, and then on. You can either go to, the Atlantic Ocean or via the Suez Canal. You can then go into the Indian Ocean. That's the only way for Russia to get out. The other ports Russia has are usually frozen over, but that might change with climate change as well. Who knows? So this is real stuff here. And Donald Trump is not equipped, prepared, nor his people for any of this. The people that he has in positions of power in his administration have exactly zero qualifications to hold those positions. 80% of them have no qualifications. I don't think they fully understand what it is they do. Okay? And what it is they do, in actuality, not what they should do, but what they do is follow Trump's whim. That's what they do, right? That's pretty much given now. It's a huge problem. Now, I've argued before, and I will keep arguing, that both Netanyahu and Putin hold the real dirt on Donald Trump. They have the real information that could sink him, right? That's why he's doing whatever they tell him to do. But there's a bigger picture here as well. There's a much bigger picture, which is the Great Reset, Dave, and we've talked about this. It becomes more and more obvious as we move along, Dave, that Donald Trump is in there, in his role, to accelerate the Great Reset, the move toward the 15-minute city, toward universal basic income, toward AI taking all of your jobs and leaving you, well, more or less useless, right? And he is there because everything he does has clearly shown us that he has no interest in helping the people. His tariffs are not helping the people. His diplomacy is not helping the people. I mean, he managed to destroy the Canadian-American relationship. He undermined the Mexican-American relationship, but he destroyed the Canadian-American relationship. He did, right? It's incredible. And let's not forget about Greenland, or Canada should be part of America. Greenland should be part of America. The Gulf of America. I mean, who cares? Ultimately, what you call it, right? But it gives you an insight into his mindset. And it's getting worse. He said, we don't like Somalians. This is becoming more and more, to me, evidence that Germany did not lose World War II. All the policies that he is pursuing, getting rid of illegal immigrants, but mostly brown people, stopping brown and black people from entering the US, like Somalians. We don't want any Somalians. There's millions of Somalians in the world, and there's probably a couple of, no more than any other population of rotten apples in there, sure. Right? But you can't summarily dismiss an entire people. That's exactly what the Germans did with the Jews. Oh, all Jews are bad, so we must kill all Jews. Right? Now, he didn't say that about the Somalians, but he says, no, we don't want Somalians here. No, we don't want them. They're all troublemakers and complainers. We don't want any Somalians. Wow! That's Dave. What? No, really? What? I mean, hello? Right? Is that not Nazi ideology at work here? The Proud Boys are being targeted for recruitment into ICE. The people that are deported, they're not blonde and blue-eyed. They're not finding all the Scandinavians that are overstaying their visa, all the Swiss, all the Germans. No, they're looking for South Americans and Africans and potentially Asians that overstay their visas. That's what they're looking for. Yeah? Not the blonde, blue-eyed people. And that's what he wants. He wants, in my opinion, predominantly white America. He wants what Australia had. Prior to the 1970s, Australia had something called white-only immigration. White-only immigration. Not even Southern Europeans. So the immigration that was allowed was Anglo-Saxon. I think Scandinavian was okay. I think Western European was okay, French, German, etc. But Italian, Spanish, Greek, not so much. Right? White-only Australia policy. And that was only revoked in the 70s. And since then, of course, we've had a significant influx of all kinds of people. And I think that's a good thing. But that's, in my mind, that is truly what he wants. He wants a white America. Did you guys watch The Man in the High Castle? It's based on a novel by Philip K. Dick where, in an alternate universe, the Germans won the war. And Germany, took the eastern half of the United States, and Japan took the western half, and the Rockies are sort of the demarcation as a neutral zone. But the eastern half of the United States is largely white. They got rid of every non-white or most non-white people. So it's blue-eyed, well, maybe not blue-eyed, but certainly white America, right? And that's what's portrayed. In that, it was actually a really good TV series. A lot of production value was really high. If you haven't seen it, go ahead. Rufus Sewell, he's got a major role. He does a great job in it. But that's what it would look like, right? White America. Just kill off everybody else. Kill off everybody who doesn't belong. Kill all the Jews. Kill all the brown and black people. Get rid of them somehow. Push them into the neutral zone. Push them over into the Japanese sector. Whatever it takes, right? And in my mind, it is blatant, and he can no longer control himself either. His outbursts, shut up, piggy, shut up, piggy. Any other official of any other government would no longer have a career if they said it to a reporter, shut up, piggy. This is incredible. There's no filter between his brain and his mouth anymore. He just says whatever he wants. Is it open? Yeah, it's open. It's like Carolyn Levitt says it's wrong. He's open and transparent. Yeah, he is. Now we know. Thank you. Brother, I don't know. What do you reckon?
Thanks. Maybe Trump, in my opinion, is kind of like, when Mr. Burns finishes negotiating with Homer and he goes whoop, 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 and he's on his side. And Mr. Burns says, I don't think he was the shrewd negotiator I thought he was. Is it possible that Trump is, let's call it mentally very, very young? And that's probably the nicest and kindest way that I can I can put it. I know that in the past children have had a very simplistic view of the world, and when posed in studies with world problems, they come up with the very simplest of solutions. And look, we're adults and it's not simple anymore because we make it complicated. But does the simple thing work? No, it doesn't. So with Trump, you're seeing a transparent person, albeit orange. You're seeing a transparent person walking through the steps of deciding what they're going to do, not coming to a quiet conclusion and then making a White House announcement on it. Now it looks like it's the toilet door is opened up and he's just finished tweeting, not that it is, and all these people are waiting outside, the hungry media waiting for his next gaffe. And look, I don't know if that's the right way to, be they call him the leader of the free world, whatever that means these days, because I have a segue for it. But is that the right way to do it? Because we thought, 200 tweets a day or something is outrageous, but, where's HR when you need them? From a, human resources perspective, that person could have a claim that they were publicly humiliated by the president. I think that, if it was the FBI got involved, that person would have an accident. They'd be accidented. I don't like where this new world is, Mackie, and my segue is quite a simple one. We are 3 days out from the social media ban in Australia. 3 days. There's a high court fight against the social media ban for 15 and under, and the government is saying, "Oh no, we're confident we're going to win." They're not letting the magistrate win. They're being confident. They say that they're going to win. There's nothing that can stop it from happening. We are everything. But that's not the only thing that's happening now. And I've watched our internet czar person being questioned directly on the television, and mind you, the government station, and there was no serious follow-up questions. They were saying this social media ban has got nothing to do with digital ID. Nothing. Yeah, fine. Well, guess what? This is the actual news story. Come December 27th, every internet search will require digital ID.
Oh, wow. Is that what it says?
That is the story. I'm reading from their actual story. So I've got it on screen. So this is Google and Bing want to know how old you are, and that's the Financial Review.
Right.
The ABC News says, how will the changes work and how will they keep the kids safe? And they're talking about photo ID checks, credit cards, digital ID, even vouching by the parents, right? But the story here is really, really strong. Now, it says Australians will soon have to verify age before using Google.
Wow.
And it says Australians will be required to verify their age when logged into Google and other search engines before the end of the year as part of the broader sweeping crackdowns on harmful content that include December 10 ban on under 16s. This is a completely separate piece of legislation that they've already got passed.
I mean, I hear you.
How. But it says, wait, because I have an answer for your question. Question. It says types of checks they could do. They could ask for a government-issued ID. They could do facial scanning to estimate your age. They could look at your previous history. Now, that was the only one. They could look at your previous history to prove that if you've been online for more than, 16 years, they can be quite sure that you're over 16. However, as we've seen in the UK, digital ID, as soon as it was introduced, gets connected to your bank account, and they're claiming it's to prevent illegal immigration. and legal workers in a country because everyone's going to require a government ID that's linked to your own bank account. In Indonesia, I think it was, 86 million accounts were just deleted.
What?
Because they said we're introducing digital identity and you've got to come into the bank with your digital identity. Your bank is going to be frozen. Your bank account is going to be frozen. And once you've provided that digital ID, we'll release the funds back to you. And if you don't by a certain date, your bank is now owns that money and the accounts are closed.
Wow. Actually, so that has happened in Australia already. I'll tell you. Keep going. I'll tell you what happened.
So in Australia, they've set up restrictions to how much you can take out in cash without providing a reason, and all of that is going into data collection. So this is quite disturbing. I'll bring up that news story and I'll be able to present it.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
no, just to let you know what. So I've got a foreign currency account, right, with a bank, American dollars, believe it or not, and because I hadn't used it in I don't know a year or two, whatever, it just sat there, right? It's a part of my inheritance from my dad. They wrote to me, if you don't come in and transact something or come and prove your identity, we're going to close your account and the funds are going to go. What? It's my money. It doesn't matter if I go there for 1,000 years or not, right?
Vietnam, Mickey. It was Vietnam.
Oh, okay, so I had to go in. With my ID and say, this is me, this is my account, and they go, okay, fine, and everything was honky dory. But this is, you're right, Dave. This is happening. This is not some kind of fantasy. So this actually is happening. Wow. That's
There we go.
Because
so I have the story on screen.
Oh, good.
I have the story on screen, and it says Vietnam State Bank, SBV, and commercial banks have moved to deactivate or delete more than 86 million bank accounts in 2025, happened this year, in a data cleansing tied to mandatory biometric verification and digital ID drive. That's it.
Right. The data cleansing.
Right. So it is real, and it's coming to your town, coming to your bank near you. And remember, they're doing this little tiny pockets all around the world, and they're going to, I call it, smushing it all together once it's all verified and active and the thing's proven. Yeah, and it'll be all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be all of us. 100%.
So the last piece of the puzzle, Mickey, I wanted to talk to about was actually I was astounded to hear this, and it's the news sometimes ends with a comical piece. I think there's so much irony in this; it's dripping with irony. So in the UK, there was a free speech film, Mickey, that was going to go into a local cinema and be presented there and have a short run, maybe 1 or 2 weeks or something like that. And once the owner of the cinema found out what the movie was about, they actually cancelled it. And so the headline says, free speech film cancelled by London Cinema as project against its values. So they didn't want to be known and part of a free speech movement is really what's going on. Because the cinema is playing the game.
Yep.
And this poor cinematographer that put this wonderful piece together is going to be a criminal.
Yeah.
Isn't that awful? Free speech, Mickey. Remember those days, those heady days of being able to say anything?
Heady days of free. We still have a speaker's corner in Hyde Park here in Sydney. We still have that. I don't know if it's still being used.
Yeah.
Look, am I surprised? No, it wasn't. It had been the writing on the wall. Many tackled Upar ever since 9/11. The writing has been on the wall. Okay, and there's no way we were ever going to get out of it. Interestingly, I listened to an interview with, I think, 3 or 4 teenagers and a lawmaker and then the reporter. This was on the ABC, on the radio. And they were talking about this digital ID thing, right? And how it, in 3 short days it comes into effect. And all the kids unanimously, and they weren't stupid kids. I mean, they were quite articulate, right? Interestingly, all the kids said, it's not going to stop anyone. We already have ways around it. We already have ways around it, they said. It's not going to stop any kid from accessing anything, right? At worst, they said, we're just going to find a different platform, one that hasn't been identified, right, as a dangerous platform.
Well, sharing social content socially, yes, is on the banned list and requires age verification. However, Discord, pardon me, Discord for gamers is allowed. You're allowed to use Discord at any age without any restrictions.
Yeah, and that's I mean, we use it right now, everybody. This is what
we are. We are using it.
We're on, right? So it is more than just a gaming platform for gamers to communicate. It is a communications platform, and a pretty good one, in fact.
So if you're trying to protect the children from adults and from themselves, because they say 90, but this is all the crazy numbers they put out. They spew numbers like they believe they're true. And they said, 90% of the posts that people put up get hate. Really?
57% of all statistics are made up on the spot.
80% of people know that, Maggie.
I know that. You know that, right? What?
I should have used a believable number because 80 would be too high. So maybe 73.4%. So this is the irony here, is if they're truly trying to save the children, then they're putting them outside now. They're going to force kids to go outside and play more into the roaming van with the lollies, right? They're putting them into those hands. They were safe inside.
Yeah.
Being on social media.
Yeah.
So I wonder if kidnappings are going to go up. If I'm looking forward into the future, it's like gun violence. Once you buy back all the guns, you just end up with blunt objects and knives. Then you end up with a knife problem. So where does the line go here? I don't know where the line is going to be. And we just have to watch the space for what it looks like in the stats coming forward.
Look, I think that's exactly right. It is impossible to predict what's going to happen here. Other than, I think, I will say that we will all have to have a digital ID, right? Full stop.
Mm-hmm.
You like it, 100%. You don't like it, that's so too bad for you. There it is. Have it. In Australia, and the thing is this, right? Barry Smith, by the way, it was the priest or the preacher that made these predictions about the future, was Barry Smith in New Zealand. And I saw him live a few times here in Sydney. But the point is, he said all this. And he said it's being done in Australia and New Zealand. He even mentioned Singapore, I think, because these are relatively small populations. And the attitude in New Zealand and Australia is more of you should be right, mate.
That's right. And that's the music. I can't believe it's the end of the first hour. But after the end of the first hour comes the second hour. Don't be afraid. We're going to be talking about the hypothesis, and this is part 17. If you see our videos anywhere in the wild, or even us in the street, say hello. And do like, share, subscribe, and comment. If you're watching this online right now, in the future, there's a second stream for the second hour. I'll take care. You take care. And be safe.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.